So it's almost similar to lookup related value. The only difference here is that instead of pulling all kind of instances, so like in lookup related value, you can look for a text field, a date field, a numeric field, a currency, or an instance field. Aggregate related instance only lets you look for single or multi-instance field using multi-instance fields. So if you remember in the lookup related value, we were only able to use single instance as a source, right? That was
Yeah.
the thing we were only using. But here, if suppose you have to bring an instance field on a particular related business object, which happens to be a multi-instance field, then it would be a aggregate related instance. So it's basically the same function is being done. It's just that first difference is the source field. No, you can not just use single instance. Of course, you can use single instance as well, but you can also leverage a multi-instance field. So if you face a multi-instance situation, of course, you know that you cannot go with a lookup related value. You would immediately prefer an aggregate related instance. The second thing what happens to be here is that instead of, so lookup related value lets you look for date fields, text constants, and numerical currency fields, but here this only lets you look up for single or multi-instance field. So it's basically you're aggregating a single or multi-instance field on a instance field. Okay. So
Okay.
we'll follow the same example as yesterday. We'll see what all can we do with the dependence field. So we knew, right, that earlier when we were creating all these ESIs and EMIs, we knew that dependent is a multi-instance field, right? So suppose
Yeah.
here I have to pull a value of all my dependents. I'm building a report, and maybe I have to compare a value of all my dependents. I'm not filtering out those dependents, or maybe I am filtering out those dependents, but the value that will be returned will be more than one, right? Maybe I'm looking at both female dependents, or maybe there might be more than one female dependents for this. So maybe I'm looking at a particular info about my female dependents, then I would go with a aggregate related instance. So let me just create that. Okay. The object again will be worker, because maybe my report is built on worker. I'm trying to bring this information on the worker primary BO.
Yeah.
And this will be the very first calculation, which will be happen to be aggregate related instances. So over here now the source field, if I click on by category, let me just show you randomly. If you look at the source field, you will be able to select both single and multi-instance over here. Let me just pick up a random basic bio thing. Yeah, so if you will see for lookup related value, only single instance fields work, right? But the good part of using aggregate related instances, you can work with multi-instance field as well. So that's
Yeah.
the probable, I will say, use case of this. Whenever you face a situation where you have to bring in a value of not a single this is annoying. Let me shut this entire thing altogether because it's not working. It's
Can you?
saved. I guess I even don't know the password. The moment I log into the CF Robo, it automatically logs in for me with the username and password. It's saved under this. So
Yeah.
whosoever provided you, can you ask them to give it to you? Because it didn't give me they only gave me this Robo password. They never gave me the password of the tenant.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what. So I guess, are you also logging the same way? Like you open a remote server and then you log into the CF Robo? So here, Tranti, the situation here is that we are only looking at information about female dependents. So if you can see, I was able to bring a multi-instance field here, and the condition, I'll build a true and false condition just like yesterday to only look at female dependent values. So like again, a good point to remember here is that your true and false will always be built on the related business object and not on the object on which you're building the field. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm only looking for female dependents, right? So my uh, condition here should ideally be gender. I should only filter on gender female here.
Frequently in the selection list.
Yeah. I guess there's a lag today for you, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And I'll be selecting female here. So yeah, I've built a condition to only extract those dependents which are of type female. Now fields to aggregate. Now in this particular value, what you're going to see is only instance field. You cannot use aggregate related instance to bring a date or a numeric, or basically you cannot bring non-instance field using aggregate related instance. You just cannot. The only fields you can bring is of type instance. So maybe if I want to bring passport details of all the female dependents of the employees, I will select this. Maybe if I want to bring in the nationalities of these dependents, I will select this. Or maybe if I want to see the SSN number of these females, I will select that. So if you will see, if you cannot bring in their birth date, you cannot bring in values like their age, you cannot bring in any text field like their name. All of that cannot be brought in. In order to bring all those kind of things, you will have to do a ESI, which is the extract single instance, and then build a LRV for those dependents. So that's a catch here. Or you can directly use this BO in your report, and in the adjacent column field, you can simply look for that value. But aggregate related instance does not let you bring non-instance field in the lookup value or in the fields to aggregate. Okay. Here you can only select one at a time. If you want to bring more up something else beyond that, you'll have to just copy this field and change whatever you're trying to aggregate. So suppose apart from work address, if you're trying to bring in their passport details, you'll have to just copy this field and use fields to aggregate as passport. Okay.
Okay.
Now the next function here that we'll be looking up is lookup value as of date. So lookup value as of date is basically in Workday, data is stored as of effective dates, right? So suppose when you were hired, Shravanti, suppose in your organization, okay, you had a manager for first 6 months and your team was different. Let's imagine this kind of situation. So your superb was maybe ABC and your manager happened to be Mr. A. Now, after 6 months, maybe you took a transfer and you moved to a XYZ org with Mr. X as your manager. Okay. So currently, let me just give you this hypothetical scenario for you. So when you were hired, as of the hire date, your manager was uh, Mr. A with your superg as ABC. Okay. Then after 6 months, you move to a different org. Maybe there was a reorg or something done, and you move to an XYZ org with manager as Mr. X. So in such a scenario, many a times what happens is that now if you run a report, you may suppose you have built a report which is pulling details like the supervisory organization of the worker, the manager. So if you run the report as of today, it will show your organization to be XYZ, okay, and your manager to be Mr. X. But maybe the stakeholder who needs this report is not concerned with their current data. They are concerned with the data as of their hire date. Means who was the particular person's manager or their supervisor, or which supervisory org they were sitting in as of their hire date. Okay. So of course, there might be people who might stay in organizations for a span of 2 to 3 years, and they might have moved multiple teams in that span. So of course, the supervisory org and the manager tends to change as a result of that. So if at all, then this is a very important thing to remember. If at all the transaction record is stored in Workday as of that date. So if the person was hired as a part of Workday system, or their historical data was brought in while Workday was being implemented for your partner, then you will be able to look for that data. But suppose what if when when you were hired, your particular organization might be using Oracle or SAP as your HR record system, right? Workday was not even there, and when you guys moved to Workday, maybe that historical data was not brought in. When you guys moved to Workday, maybe that historical data was not brought in. Your organization might have decided SAP or Oracle. So in that situation, you cannot pull that data. But if there is a record saved in Workday related to this particular
Preeti, I lost you
information,
completely.
as
Can you
in
repeat
if
that?
people's hire record have been brought. So I'm saying if your hire record is stored into Workday, and then you can bring in data as of a particular date into Workday. And that is when we use lookup value as of date. When you're looking for data as of a particular date in Workday, then you rely on lookup value as of date. So I'm saying when you have to look for a particular data as of a particular date in Workday, then you go with this lookup value as of date field. Yeah, so what I was trying to explain is that if you have to look up at a value as of a particular date, then you use lookup value as of date field. And that is when we use lookup value as of date field. So that particular point, I were you able to understand it then?
Again, I
Hello?
lost. Again, I can't hear you, Preeti.
Session to close calculated field and matrix report both. Okay. But today
Yeah.
it's just not happening. The Wi-Fi is not really. Okay.
Okay.